Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Twin Cities Jewish Film Festival. My name is Ben Cohen, and I'm the Director of Arts, Culture, and Enrichment for the Minnesota JCC. Tonight, I'm honored to be joined by the Director of Persian Lessons to speak about the film that we all just experienced. As we have our conversation, I would encourage you to ask your questions into the chat, and we'll try to answer audience questions as well. Vadim Perlman began his career directing commercials and music videos. His debut feature film, House of Sand and Fog, was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. In addition to his highly regarded feature films, he works for leading US and Russian television companies. And he joins us tonight, or this morning for him, live from Moscow, Russia. We're so grateful Vadim is taking the time to be with us at the Twin Cities Jewish Film Festival. Welcome, Vadim.
Thank you.
So my first question for you is about the inspiration and the source material that you found for this wonderful film. And congratulations on such a remarkably poignant and beautiful story. The film is, as I understand it, is based on a short story by Wolfgang Kohlhaas. Can you tell us a little bit about that inspiration, where you found that story, what drew you to it? And made you feel I need to adapt this for a film?
Well, you know, it was an incredible story, as you've seen, and it was given to me by a producer, actually in Russia. And it's funny, I don't live in Russia. You know, I live in the States, and I live in Canada, but I happened to be in Russia working at that time, shooting something. And he gave it to me as, you know, as one of the many scripts that he wanted to do with me. And out of all the scripts, of course, I chose this one, and because I responded to it, you know, I really did, personally and emotionally.
I'd be curious what it was that in particular that you responded to. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is just your personal connection and your life in relation to the Shoah. And a question is just in your life, when did you first become aware of the Shoah? Is something that I always am interested to ask someone who is now telling stories about the Shoah. So how do you enter that space and relate to it?
Yeah, Ben, I was close to the Shoah my whole life since birth, and because I'm born in Kiev, you know, in Kiev, Ukraine, and you know, it's the place of it's the location for Babi Yar. You know, so for me, and we were lucky. My family was lucky. My grandmother, my mother's mother, got on a train literally a week and a half before the Germans entered the city, and was evacuated to Siberia. She was in a cattle car with a 5-year-old son and 9 months pregnant at that time. She was by herself. My grandfather was at the front fighting the Nazis. And, you know, and my grandmother gave birth in that cattle car to my mom. And, you know, and yeah, in Siberia in 1941, July 9th. Wow. And yeah, literally a week and a half after that, Germans entered Kiev, occupied it, and in September, you know, those horrific events happened in Babi Yar. That, you know, and if my family, if my grandmother wasn't lucky enough to get on that train, you know, I wouldn't be here. My mother wouldn't be here. You know, and I think that's one of the things that connects me to Shoah.
Wow. Definitely. Was that something your family spoke about to each other your whole life then?
You know, no, not at all. And it's actually a very funny, not funny, but very interesting thing about survivors. And I consider them to be survivors, but all of us to be
Yeah,
survivors
sure.
in a sense, is that, we don't like to talk about it too much. Not we,
Who can blame them? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because, and not because it was so tough, because, yeah, damn right, it was tough. But because a lot of times people survived and they have this, which is actually in the film, they have this kind of a guilt about it, about surviving.
mm-hmm.
At the cost of what? At the cost of other people's lives, or at the cost of, doing something they're not proud of. Who knows? It's irrelevant. But the point is that it's never heroic survival. Hardly ever.
Right. Right.
So no, we didn't talk about it.
That's just interesting. Yeah, and I do a lot of work around telling stories around the Holocaust, and that's always just a very important thing to recognize, that not everybody could tell their own stories and talk about
almost
it.
None, almost none.
As
and
a,
the ones that do are super valuable,
sure.
because
well, and I would say,
yeah.
As a storyteller, to see you continuing to tell those stories, and we'll talk more about the film as well. I imagine that has an impact on your motivation somewhat to enter this space and want to tell a story like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to move into talking about the film a little bit, this is a historical drama. That's to say, it's a fictional story. And so when it comes to tackling the Holocaust within that realm, could you share some of your process of navigating a fictional story where you had to be so careful and honor the memory and the historical record of the Holocaust? What were some of the choices that you feel you made to walk what some might consider a tightrope? I think you've done an amazing job of it. If you could talk about that experience as a filmmaker to enter that.
Yeah, Ben, for a Jew, as I am, for a Jew that is absolutely, I wouldn't say learned, but definitely aware, of the Holocaust and the history of the Holocaust. In my home, there's a whole shelf of books about it. And so I'm, I know my stuff about it. I know my history. It was an incredible responsibility in a way. I felt almost, I felt responsible, to tell the story the right way. And a lot of people think that to tell the story the right way is to, to basically say, oh, aren't we poor, victims of it all? And that's one way to tell it, and that has been told many times in that way. But that's not the only way. I mean, I don't think that pity or some sort of compassion. I mean, that's very valuable, of course. I don't think that's the only way. I think the way to tell it is, and keep telling it. That's the important thing. These stories have to be kept. You can't say, oh, another film about the Holocaust. You have to keep making them, and you have to keep not just films, books, obviously, and other ways of expressing yourself. Is that, I mean, our ultimate goal as Jews is for it never to happen again. But the thing is, and this is the crazy thing, is that it's not only for it never happened again to us, but it's never for us to never ever do that also as human beings. If it was flipped around, and for other people never to do that to other people, third parties, so that's the responsibility. And frankly, it was extremely scary, for me. It was a very daunting task to live up to that kind of importance of message. and there, it's, Holocaust films, and I'm sure, people here have seen a lot of them, and most of them have, they run the gamut. It's never, they run the gamut from a farce, from like a funny haha, message like Jojo Rabbit, films like that, to Son of Saul, the other end of the spectrum, and to films that are much more realistic and hard hitting and visceral. And so I had to choose, and I, as a director, get to choose that. Like, where is my film going to be in that? And I had the material that could be funny in a way, if you treated it that way.
Sure. A bumbling Nazi at the end,
Yeah, well, it's the old Hogan's Heroes kind of a thing. Or it could be extremely hard hitting and realistic if I wanted it to be that way. And that's also never like good either. I don't think extremes in the storytelling, in the telling of those horrific events actually serve it any good, tell you the truth. I think that, if you do a musical about a concentration camp, that cheapens, the whole thing. And frankly, if you do an extremely realistic, teeth being torn out of people and train platforms and babies being hit against, lampposts, which actually happened, that's also not, it's cheap to me in a way. I think the ultimate goal is to get to the emotion of the actual people. And actually, to me, the ultimate goal is to see the humanity in it, not only from the victim, but also from the aggressor,
Sure.
To see these people. I'm shocked when I read books and when I study the subject. I'm shocked about these houses that were on the outskirts of Auschwitz, where the SS officers lived, quite often with their families, and I can just imagine it in my mind. I've never seen it, obviously, and nobody's ever actually shown it, in any media. Them waking up in the morning, going, taking a shower, as we all do, getting into their Hugo Boss black uniforms,
yep,
and coming, kissing their kids goodbye for the day, because they were quite often good family men, and having their wife brush the lint off their shoulder and say, what time are you going to be home, honey? And they would say, I don't know, there's a train coming in today, so maybe 8 p.m. That is absolutely, that was a revelation for me, that kind of thought.
Sure.
And the kind of thought was that they're not, frankly, different from Ben Cohen or from Vadim Perlman or from Elie Wiesel. They're not. They're the same sort of DNA. They're the same sort of person that has the same wants, loves, desires, fears, etc. And they're capable of doing that stuff.
Well, that's the hard reality that I've also learned in my own work in approaching this topic, is that, yes, that we have to understand that capacity for evil is in all of us, is, it's the banality of evil that we talk about, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I also just know too is that as we spoke earlier, that not all survivors could tell their story, but we did, fortunately, and have heard, from many survivors over the years. And one thing that we do not hear enough about is the lives of the perpetrators, and how does one become
who were they? That's
right.
The crazy thing. Like, we know these names, we've seen these people at the Nuremberg trials, we have these like archived photographs and so on, and video. Like, they were, the crazy thing is they weren't that much different from us. And that, you know, if you've seen the film, as I assume many people who hear,
If they're here, they should have seen the film.
they've seen
Yes.
the film.
Mhm.
You know, maybe it's not even super consciously, but you know, that's one of the things that was the outcome of this film for me, and hopefully for you, is that, you know, who is Klaus Koch? You know, and when Gilles asks him in this fake Farsi, who are you? You know, he doesn't say, you know, in a weak moment, he doesn't say Hauptführer Koch. He says Klaus Koch. And he talks about his mother. And that makes it even more horrific, I think, in a way.
Can you talk about Lars Eidinger now, as you speak about that, and just casting Lars as Klaus Koch and what he brought to that role? Because it's such a complicated character. Could you just talk about the casting and a little bit about Noel Biscayart as Gil as well, as Gilles?
Well, Eidinger is, I think, he is Germany's treasure. He is probably the most preeminent actor in that country. You know, plays Hamlet in the main theater in Berlin and so on. You have to wait months to get a ticket to go see him. He's an incredible, brave actor. Truly, he is. And he was perfect for the role. I mean, it was a very easy choice. You know, because he is a damn Aryan, you know, in through and through, visually, you know, and you know, so for him to play that role was actually quite brave. And for him to do, I don't know if anybody's seen, and you might, if you want to go to my Facebook page and see the interview, the press conference that we did at Berlin Film Festival, which was the premiere of the film, was in Berlin, which also was quite, you know, different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they loved it, by the way, the Germans. For him to actually open himself up and talk about his his grandfather being SS, and all that, you know, that was, you know, and why not? I mean, most of them were you know, so it was incredible. You know, I think Lars is one of the great actors of the world, one of the great humans of the world too. Noel is Argentinian. Funny enough, he's not Jewish, the actor, although he might look it. But he is, you know, he's Argentinian, great little actor, you know, who was perfect for the role.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. Just the way they brought those characters in a full picture of those characters was just remarkable.
And I mean, you have to think about the way we shot it too. It was in Belarus. It was in the winter. It was shot in a former prison camp. You know, the location had a lot of history. It was like a Gestapo headquarters at one point. It was a KGB, you know, prison at one point. I mean, it was creepy in there where we shot it, you know, and it was, you know, we felt like we went through, we touched that experience when we were shooting it. Winter, cold, and miserable, and so on.
Wow. Well, I also just, you know, want to talk about the language that you invented for this film, which is so fascinating that you actually invented, you really created and worked with a linguist to create this fake language. Can you just tell us about behind the scenes what that process required? And you didn't just, the things that we see in the film, it's so much deeper than that. So I'd like you to just tell everyone a story about the language.
We needed to invent the language from scratch for the film. So I went to the Moscow State University and I went to a linguist, professor, linguistics. And I said, here's the you know, here are the building blocks. You know, by the way, every name that you see in the logs, in the books that were burned and so on, every name, used in the film is a name of a victim.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You know, it is a name. It is the true name. That's how I want it to be. You know, them. You know, so therefore, every name, every word in that language, except one, is is based on an actual person that perished in the Holocaust. So I gave him, I said, here are the words that are written in the script that you need to make a language from. And I wanted to be vaguely Eastern sounding, like, you know, and I wanted to be grammatically correct. That was one of the things that I insisted on. I said that I don't want any other linguists to have any kind of problem with it. So I have a 600-word dictionary of that language, which is grammatically correct with suffixes, prefixes, and so on.
Do you have a name for the language?
No, it's fake Farsi. We always call it fake Farsi. Yeah, alliteration. Yeah.
And speaking of that list of names at the end of the film, since everyone here has seen the film, we can talk about it.
By the way, Ben, did you not wonder what the one word was?
I'm sorry. Yes, I did. Everybody wants to know, what is the one word?
Yeah, well, the word was love, which was Onai, which came from Adonai. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
That was my little contribution.
It's obviously it's a huge component of the film, and you know, all of that is very apparent, that there was a lot of research and work done to make that, to come up with all these words, because you're watching it and, you know, it makes his the way that he convinced you know, his captor that this is a real language. It had to feel real.
He's a trickster.
In order for, you know, if it felt stupid, then it wouldn't have worked. So
yeah, he's as our grandparents used to tell us, he's a Yiddish Kopf.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, here's a crazy thing. I don't think he's a rabbi's son, to tell you the truth, at all. I think he's some sort of a crook, some sort of a thief. It just feels that way to me. I don't know why.
Well, the thing I was about to ask you, though, which is made even more remarkable that it's real names that you've used, is the end of the film. He recites the names, and for anyone who's ever participated in Holocaust remembrance ceremony, it's just
it's all about the
we've
name.
all done that. We've sat there and read the names.
Yeah, and if you've ever been to Prague, there's a synagogue that has walls covered, all four walls covered, tiny little names. Yeah,
and it's such a you know, I say satisfying ending too. You have, you know, you see what happens to Klaus Koch, and you know, and you know, we were speaking earlier. I mentioned, you know, at the beginning of the film, you know that he survives. And so for me, I was very focused the whole film on what's going on in his head.
Really? Do you not think that he's walking to the truck?
Well, because you hear the voiceover saying.
You hear the voiceover about the camp.
So if you're paying attention, you kind of have a sense. I think he survives, right? You don't know. Of course, you don't know until it's over. But in my head, I wasn't I knew he would get to that point, right? I knew that until I see him again in that scene, I know he's going to make it through each of these scenes somehow.
Yeah.
And so what was amazing to me is then I'm focused on, as you said, his emotion and what is he experiencing in each scene. I'm less concerned that this is it for him.
The cool thing about storytelling is we're still worried about him.
Sure,
even though,
absolutely.
We do know that he survives.
Well, that's
so in moments we were like, oh my God, is he going to get, you know, yeah, absolutely.
But where I was going to go with that is the end of the film is so satisfying. And just it's such a powerful ending with the names reading. And I'm just curious if you could talk about that. Going back to the short story, I'm curious if that's something that was in the short story or if that's something. So if you just
actually,
talk about
the short story never had the device of him using names. as a basis for the language.
Amazing.
No, he just made up words. No, the short story was actually quite basic and frankly not that good, in a crazy way. Like it wasn't that profound to me. It was just a great, cool idea of somebody surviving in a concentration camp by making up a fake language. That's what it had, and then from then, this is where we needed to add the emotion, to add the significance, I think, of that. And the significance really lies in the fact that, if this was just a survival story, which we've seen many of or heard of many, of a clever, as I said, Jüdische Kopf, fooling the Germans and surviving, and oh God bless him, incredible. It's we would all be kind of satisfied and kind of great. The great thing about this, the profound thing about it, is that he builds a memorial with his survival, and unknowingly so.
Right.
He has no idea that this is actually happening as he goes through it. And in the end, when he tells all these names, when he actually resurrects, in a way, all these people who have burned twice, they burned in the ovens of the camps, and they burned in the ovens of in the fireplaces of the camp commander, in the logs, in the books. He brings them to life, some of them, and it is a heroic, monumental act that is inadvertently happens to him because all he wanted to do was survive. And what's cool, and that's why he cries in the last scene, because otherwise, why the hell is he crying telling these names? He cries because he realizes, that's why I made him cry, because he realizes what he's doing, that it was all not for nothing.
Well, and if you go back to that feeling of guilt that a survivor might feel,
exactly,
and then here he's realizing I've at least, the least I can do is tell these names.
It wasn't just for me.
Amazing. You've taken this film all over the world now. Can you tell us what's next for it?
Well, our participants in this chat are going to get to see it in January in the theaters. It is being released. Thank God, it's being released in the States. It's been now in 40 countries. So the world has seen it as much as they could because of the conditions. And they loved it. It has won many festivals. It's been super successful. And, the thing that pleases me the most, actually, is the fact that when I can see the people's faces watching. That's one thing I miss in this situation. But, I did get that, I didn't get to experience that in other places, and to see people watching it and to see people reacting it is why I make movies.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. And again, thank you for being part of our festival.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else you'd want to share, otherwise we can wrap it up here.
One of the cool things, one of the little anecdotes is that Noel, who played Gilles, he doesn't know a word of German. He played the whole film speaking German phonetically, which he had no idea how to speak. And he knows French, but he doesn't know German. So Lars, every day before the shoot, when they had common scenes together, Lars in their hotel taught him how to say these words properly, and he actually did. And Germans say he did it so well that they couldn't even, he just had a slight accent. That's how good of an actor he is. And the ironic thing is, in those scenes, when, his character ended up teaching Klaus how to speak another language. So, he had two people, this crazy thing. Yeah.
What a unique story. And along with that, a unique production.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. So I have a message as we go out. I'd like to thank our wonderful film. Thank you so much, Vadim. And I'd like to thank our wonderful Film Fest sponsors. Their generous support allows us to elevate Jewish voices and experiences through film, allows us to bring this incredible Jewish cultural arts offering to the broadest possible audience. If you've been moved by Persian lessons, by films in this year's Film Fest, I encourage you to consider supporting the Film Fest and our wide range of cultural arts at the JCC. You can make a gift easily and securely at givetothej.org. Thank you for supporting the fest, being part of this dialogue. Vadim, thank you for joining us today, and good morning in Moscow. Have a great day.
Thank you.